Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live session. So we're doing these 5 days a week now, and if you've never seen them before, it's a quick look at the major markets. So we'll take a look at the euro, US dollar, pound, US dollar, stock market indices, gold and oil, just to see what's been moving and what to look out for over the next couple of days. So we do them every day at 12:30. They only run for sort of 15 to 20 minutes. After they've happened, the recording of it is always available. So if you miss it, if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel by clicking that subscribe button down there, you can always see it, and you always get notified whenever we go live or put up new content. It's been an interesting 24 hours. I think we saw weaker US stock markets yesterday. They are bouncing back a bit in the overnight session, but we saw a reasonable sell-off for US indices. Oil also sold off pretty sharply, but it's turned around pretty quickly again this morning. So we'll take a look at that. And the pound, we'll start off looking at the pound because it's hitting 2-month highs now. So let me just drag the platform across because I think it's been up enough for long enough. Oh, just one thing to mention. We're doing this zero spread promotion from 11 o'clock this evening for the oil price. So whether you trade Brent oil, the UK version, or US crude, from 11 tonight for 24 hours, there's going to be no spread. So there'll be no bid offer spread. So no cost for trading from a bid offer point of view. And we do it now and again on various different markets that are of interest to our clients. And because oil inventories are out 4 o'clock tomorrow, because it was a holiday on Monday. They normally come out on Wednesday, so they're out 4 o'clock tomorrow. So it's normally, it's a weekly event for oil. We can normally see a bit of volatility over that. So if you are a client, you get an email and a push notification when that starts. And if you're not a client, if you go to Capital.com, sign up for an account, you can trade oil with no spread. But that's that done. Let's drag the trading platform across, and let's start off with this pound US dollar. The move we've seen today. If I flip this over to a 5-minute chart, so coming in this morning, we've been looking at this clearly all week because it's very much in focus at the moment with all the Brexit stuff that's going on. But so we came in this morning with it trading around about 129.40. So it's risen pretty much 100 points so far today, and it just goes on really, I think, reinforcing what my view is on the pound in the run up to Brexit. This is a daily chart now. We're looking at this recovery that's been going on all this year is still going. I think that the obvious target, the first target, I think, is a run back to maybe those mid-November highs, sort of 130, 165, and after that, I think we could well see 133. Over the next, well, it moves pretty quickly. It could happen pretty quickly, but I think over the next 4 weeks, it wouldn't surprise me if we were trading up at 133. And I think, going back to what I've been saying over recent weeks, we know the worst outcome for Brexit at the moment is no deal. Markets seem to have discounted that, taken that in their stride, and that's why we're seeing the pound rising. Looking earlier this week, we picked up on that big support level after the vote. So we had the vote a week last Monday where Theresa May got defeated. Pound US dollar was selling off into that vote, a bit nervous. She has that massive defeat in the House of Commons. The market surged, and since then, this 128 level, 128.20. That we were looking at just earlier this week on Monday, the market did come pretty close to it, sort of 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock Monday morning. 128.20 continues to prop up any weakness in the pound. And with the strength we've seen today, I think it continues to be a market where we should be looking to buy the dips. I think it's only if we lose 128.20 and then we'd be losing this trend for the year as well, does it start to look as if it's in trouble. So for me, I think the expectation is for maybe further pound US dollar gains from here. Let's take a look at euro sterling, to see how it's doing against that. We don't look at that every time, every day we do these things, but clearly that it's not just the pound that's going to be affected by Brexit. There's a lot of uncertainty around what it's going to mean for the European economy. And we saw just the other week, the German economy grew at its slowest rate since 2013. So the European economy is in a bit of trouble as well. And Brexit, the uncertainty around Brexit certainly isn't helping. I remember when we were looking at this beginning of the year, and I was saying I can't really see it much higher than 91. 91 has been a real barrier for euro sterling, and it's really tanked since then, because of this pound strength. And then we'll have a look at euro dollar in a minute, but with the euro not really going anywhere and the pound gaining ground, we've seen euro sterling slip. And I think it's gonna be an interesting one to watch over the next week or so, because it's been trapped when does that go back to? August last year, and then back here October 2017. So for pretty much 15 months, it's been trapped sort of from 90 to 91 on the upside, and on the downside 86, and we're currently trading at 87.18. So we're about 100 points above this low for euro sterling. Sorry. So I think if we lost 86 over the next couple of weeks, it does suggest we're going to see an even deeper fall for the euro versus the pound. So it could get interesting. But again, I think maybe the trade to do, if we see a bit of strength coming in the next couple of days, we'll take a look at this on Thursday and Friday when we do these sessions. Maybe the euro has slid far enough against the pound, and we'll have something of a bounce back into the range. But it's interesting that euro sterling has slid so heavily, and it is being driven by that pound strength. Let's take a look at euro US dollar. I did buy this earlier this week. I thought it'd be interesting just to put a trade on while we're doing these things. I only did a trade, I think, risking 50 quid. Where is it? Because this is the account I use for these live sessions. There we go. So it's been going nowhere basically. So I bought at 113.64, buying 10,000 with a stopper at 113. And I'll go through the reasons for that. It's not done anything. But if we bring up the euro dollar chart, we talked about this earlier in the week. This recovery that's been going on in euro dollar gradually, so the euro against the dollar, since the November lows, is still chugging along. So we're still in that uptrend that's been in place now for 2.5 months, is it? Or just 2 months and a week maybe. And it's drifting down, but it's been a really quiet week. So I did the trade. I thought it'd be interesting to put something on just to see if we do see the buyers come back in here. And my stop at 113, arguably it should have been a bit lower. But these lows from back here, 113.08, the lows from January, and the market did rally a good 250 points off that level. So basically, if the euro is going to bounce from anywhere, this is the place. If we're looking at the indicators, because the market hasn't been that volatile in the last couple of weeks, we're not really getting extreme readings on these indicators. So the RSI is about 42%. The MACD down here, the daily MACD, is still selling off. We haven't got a buy signal there, but I think euro US dollar ahead of these old 113 levels is interesting. But it's been a pretty there we go. You can see that's on the hourly chart. It's been a pretty flat week. It's traded as low as 113.35, and it's been as high as 113.73. So it's been a really tight range. 50-point range for the week for euro US dollar is a pretty tight range. But let's see. We do have the interest rate decision tomorrow from the European Central Bank, 12:45. I think that comes out tomorrow. No changes expected. So my little trade is a little bit in profit at the moment, 3 quid in profit, but it's just been flipping around from a small profit to a small loss all week because the market's not been doing anything. But maybe euro US dollar gets a bit more interesting tomorrow when the interest rate decision is out of the way. Let's take a look at oil. Then we'll do gold. Then we'll look at stock market indices. So let's just bring up the oil price. I was watching oil yesterday. I was looking to try and buy in, but it was just weak all day yesterday, and it's bounced back really quickly today. Just to remind ourselves where we are on oil. Maybe an hourly chart is as good a chart as any. If we go back to these lows from, it was Christmas Eve was the low in oil, 42.30-ish, $42.30 a barrel. It's had this massive bounce back since then, where it's risen by something like 27%. I think the price of oil. So it's a pretty impressive rally, and it did poke out this week to new highs, just about very briefly. But yesterday it was selling off, and I was watching this sort of level from January the 18th, so the end of last week, watching sort of $52.50 to see if there was any support. But it did go sort of sailing through it yesterday afternoon, eventually finding support at 52. And it's bounced back $1.50, you know, so I was expecting the bounce back. I just wasn't expecting it to sell off quite as deeply as it did. But we still have, you know, our trend is still in place off those lows. I think that the big levels to watch over the next 24 hours for oil, clearly the low from yesterday ahead of 52 has turned out to be good support. And if we break that, looking at these lows back here at 51.20 from last week. So for now, what I would like is a bit of a sell-off for oil back to the low 52s, you know, a retest of that low from yesterday, and a bit of strength would be an opportunity for me to get in. But at the moment, it's a bit of a just wait and see market for me. But it's clearly still strong, but it's turned around so quickly. There wasn't really an obvious sort of level, I think, for me to do the trade there. Let's take a look at the price of gold, because that has again perked up a bit over the last couple of days. Again, the big picture for gold, you know, looks like this. We've been tracking this recovery that's been going on since August. In gold, it's been a bit of an uneventful month so far. It's struggled to get through 1300. We haven't broken 1300 really this month. It's sold off on Friday of last week, but it has found a bit of strength, you know. So again, it's not been the most volatile of markets. But if we flip it round to the hourly chart, you know, we have seen it turn around this week. It made a low on 21st of Jan. When was that? That was Monday. And then we came back to it Tuesday, and again a little bit later in the afternoon. And we have pushed higher again earlier this morning. So it does look like it's turning around this weakness. Assuming this recovery is going to carry on, I think that the short to medium term objective for gold is to push back into that range that it's been in for most of January. So maybe we're going to see another retest of 1300. And I think we really need to break 1300, going back to the daily chart now, to make things a bit more interesting. You know, I think if we can break above 1300, then we can start looking at more aggressive targets. So in the short term, it's the support for the week at around about, what, 1275. Has done a good job. So if we did see a sell-off from here, from a short-term point of view, let's see how it performs on those lows for the week. But it does look like, so far at least, it's turning things around and trying to build some sort of recovery. I think maybe the interesting market to watch this afternoon is stock markets. So they came back yesterday. The US had a holiday on Monday, didn't they, for Martin Luther King Day. And so this was yesterday's trading. This is an hourly chart. Maybe let's make it a 5-minute chart just to pick up on that sell-off. And we did see fairly sharp sell-off yesterday. This is the Dow that we're looking at. So the market did try and push a little bit higher, up to 24.5. It's interesting, actually. That's where the market is trading now. So the Dow is having a go at pushing through yesterday's in-hours high. So I think we could be in for an interesting start this afternoon. So the market went from 24.6 near enough, traded as low as 24.250. So we saw 350-point range for the Dow yesterday. It did recover a bit into the close. So I think what's going to be interesting today is how does it start? You know, do we see it break this in-hours high? So I think the immediate level to watch, 24,600 on the Dow, I reckon, is the level to watch this afternoon. So maybe we'll see a bit of to and fro this afternoon when the market opens at 2:30 UK time, because these were the highs for yesterday. They were the highs in really sort of the overnight market as well yesterday. So it's going to be interesting if we break 24.6 properly on the Dow. I think then we're looking at the potential for a run back up to the highs from the end of last week at 24,760. But I suppose, I mean, I'm still, after yesterday's slide, I traded it twice yesterday. I bought it early on, got stopped out for a loss, and then sold on the break. So made it back on the short. And for me, because it did slip yesterday to its lowest since, was it last Thursday? I just wonder if it's still maybe US markets maybe still a bit nervous going into this afternoon. So I think for me initially, if there's any sort of failure to break this 24,600 on the Dow, maybe it's a shorting opportunity this afternoon. Let's see what happens. But I think that the bigger picture, to go back to the dailies, we're still sticking with, let me drag that line over because it doesn't need to be up there. We're still pretty much sticking with that recovery for US indices that's been going again since after Christmas. So I think even if we have a bit of a wobble, bit of weakness, it doesn't necessarily mean that recovery is over. There's our trend line chugging away. I think if the Dow loses 24,000, it does start to look as if maybe we're going to head down for a bit. So I think it's going to be interesting one to watch this afternoon. But for me, 24.6, which is pretty much where we are now. How does the market cope with that? If we see a bit of early weakness, perhaps a bit of a shorting opportunity, and maybe it goes back to have a look at the lows from yesterday at around about 24,300. Let's see. Let's see what happens. If we take a look at the Nasdaq, and the Nasdaq's an interesting market because, of course, what's been going on with tech stocks. They were the big drivers of the market on the way up. They've been a big factor in the market struggling in the second half of last year, and we had picked up before on this old trend line. I think I need to perhaps log out and log in because my trend lines aren't getting picked up, but let's not worry about it. So we did have this trend. This is the Nasdaq 100. There we go. So there was our trend from some October in the Nasdaq 100. So again, it's had a little look through the trend line. That would have been Friday of last week. If you thought this trend was going to hold, then arguably this is the place to go short. I don't know, stop losses, maybe the close. If I was going short here based on this chart, based on this trend, I'd want my stop above those Friday highs. So somewhere above 6,800 on the Nasdaq 100. But again, it's an interesting one here. The RSI did go very briefly overbought. You can see it here on last Friday. The MACD hasn't quite hooked over yet, but if we get a bit more weakness, it looks like the MACD could give a sell signal. So for the Nasdaq, what is it, 68.25, I think is the level to watch. So we could be in, I think, for an interesting session this afternoon in US markets. We had a reasonably steep sell-off yesterday. They've bounced back overnight. Let's see how they perform when the markets start actually trading properly at 2:30. And let's look at the FTSE, because I thought this was interesting yesterday. Again, based on the daily charts yesterday. So the FTSE 100, the UK's blue chip index. Let's just take a look at that. What is going on? I think I need to log out and log back in again. Okay, but we have our trend on the FTSE, this downturn on the FTSE that's been chugging away since August, and a bit like the Nasdaq, it's pushed back up, but it's still in that downtrend. 7,000 has proved to be a little bit of a barrier over the last week or so. So if markets are going to run out of steam, we're pretty much there. So I think even though we may not see much volatility day to day, I think it's still an interesting few days for these stock markets. So someone's asked to have a quick look at sterling against the South African rand. A second. It's not been enabled on my platform. Sorry about that. We can't have a look at that. So look at dollar South African rands. No, I haven't got it enabled on my platform. I'll get it switched on for when we're looking at this later in the week. So I think immediately the interesting markets to watch: pound US dollar, because it's making 2-month highs, but it is incredibly volatile because of what's going on with Brexit, but still strong. Any weakness, pound US dollar. If it did pull back to the low 128s, that does look like a buying opportunity. And then going into this afternoon, it is stock markets. So the Dow at the moment, I'm presuming the S&P is doing pretty much a similar sort of thing, but pushing back up. Yeah, the S&P is the same. Pushing back up to the highs from yesterday. So yesterday, where's the S&P highs? The S&P highs are a little bit higher than where we are now. So the S&P highs are more like 26.55, that sort of area. So there's a bit more headroom for the S&P. But I think the interesting thing is going to be, can these US markets break through the highs of yesterday? If they don't, then I think maybe the risk is we can have a trip back and have a look at the lows of yesterday. And it was a big range yesterday. So I think it could be a bit of an interesting afternoon. But we'll start wrapping things up there. So I will just flip over and give you my contact details. Any questions after this, you can drop me an email, david.jones@, Capital.com. Of course, to find out about the company, get our website. To take advantage of that zero spread thing on oil that starts this evening from 11 o'clock. You just need an account with us, and you can do that from the website or by downloading our app from wherever you get our app. But we'll do this all again tomorrow. We'll see where we are tomorrow. We've got that European interest rate decision partway through the live session tomorrow. So we'll keep an eye on the euro while that's happening and see what the reaction is. But thanks for coming along. Hope you have a good afternoon if you're trading, and hopefully see you at 12:30 tomorrow.